In this lesson, we'll wrap up the texturing portion of the mech by doing some final adjustments, as well as fixing some minor issues that may arise in your own projects. Let's first take a look at the panel lines we drew in. You'll notice there's a gray color being set where the lines are. We can fix this by simply changing the layer's base color blending mode to multiply. Next, I want to add a couple more materials, the first one being glass for the top area. I'll create a fill, name it glass, and I'll choose a dark value and bump the roughness to about 0.2. I'll add a black mask and paint into that area. Now there seems to be an issue here where the surface is not completely smooth, and it looks like the paint chipping mask is actually getting in the way. So we'll go down to the base paints, and on the paint layer mask, I'll paint in black on the paint effect to remove any chipping that may occur in that area. I'll also want to add a flat gray material for the antenna at the back. So I'll create a fill, choose a dark value with a roughness about 0.8, and add a black mask and use the polygon fill tool with mesh fill and a value of white to select the antenna. I also want to paint in a couple more decals on the back, so let's load up the stencil sheet by using the search bar and typing in Big Eye. I'll drag it into the stencil area and apply it to the back. I'll enable symmetry and use the shape border circle alpha and stamp it here on the sides where the exhausts are. Looking at our decals, they're looking a little bit too clean compared to the rest of the mech. I'll go into the mask, and to keep things non-destructive, I'll add a paint effect. Let's choose the paint chip brush we created in an earlier module. I'll type in paint chip in the search bar to select it. Now when I paint white into the effect, it'll add more lines, and when I paint black, it'll remove lines. Instead, what I'll do is change the blend mode of this effect to subtract. You'll notice now when I paint white, it'll remove areas, and painting black will bring back the original decal. I'll just chip away a few parts by using the hotkey X to alternate between white and black values, and adjusting the brush size to get some larger chunks out. So I'm just working my way around the mesh on the sides here, and then now to the back, just adding a little bit of visual interest to the decals that we placed on the mesh. Now I want to see some more chipped paint to the raw metal, so we can go to the paint layer and adjust the smart mask by upping the global balance slightly. We can always paint in the paint effect area to add or remove some chips. So I'll switch to our paint chip brush and clean up some areas on the front. I'll also add a couple more chips on the sides here. Now, this type of smart mask is utilizing the curvature map, so you'll notice on the canister, I'm actually cleaning up quite a bit because the curvature there is quite extreme, and on the top here too. So just cleaning those up as we go. And finally, we can add a finish to the entire mesh. In the shelf, I'll type in finish, and there's a few presets that come shipped with Painter. Now, finishes are usually used for raw metals, and will give it some height and roughness variance, but they're also useful for adding some extra noise and crunchy details to textures. So I'll drag and drop this into the Big Eye folder underneath the dirt layer group, since I want it to only affect the surfaces. Enabling and disabling this layer, you can see a subtle difference. Let's get working on getting the bottom half a little bit dirtier. So let's go to the leaks layer and select the mask. And what I'll do is apply a dust occlusion smart mask to this area. So in the shelf under smart mask, I can scroll down to dust occlusion and simply drag and drop that onto the layer. And by hitting Alt and viewing the mask and turning on and off what we just applied, we can notice that it overwrote our leaks that we painted in. To fix this, you simply want to change the blending mode of the smart mask to linear dodge or additive. This will add any white pixels to the current mask. So we can do the same by adding a ground dirt smart mask. And again, by viewing the mask, you'll see that it overwrote what we just had. So we can go to the mask effect and change this one over here to additive to composite them together. I'll go back to this striping layer and we can begin to break up some of the decals the same as we did on the top by applying a paint effect, switching the blend mode to subtract, and using the paint chip brush that we created to break up some of the stamps. So just slowly working my way around the mesh, just cleaning up some of these decals a little bit here. And let's push the paint wear up again by adjusting the global balance to about 0.15. And lastly, I'll apply the finish rough just as we did above. And I'll place this above the bar layer. Looking a bit closer at the base color, I'll hit C to isolate that channel just to double check. I'm noticing that this area by the inner thigh is not picking up any color information. To fix this, we can go back to the base paints folder and select the color selection and just adjust the tolerance up to about 1 until we remove any issues. You can see how easy it is to iterate and make changes on a texture like this, where in a traditional workflow, you would have to do a lot of manual work and juggle hundreds of layers to get the same turnaround. So we can keep tweaking until we're happy with it, but I feel like we're in a good spot to begin the rendering process in the next lesson.